All right, so we're live again for the second Fireside chat series with Cindy Stone. So last time I forgot to introduce myself, woohoo! But I'm Natasha Koo. I am the Women's Tribe leader at Feminine Space. It's your sisterhood tribe for self-realization and celebration. And this week we have another beautiful chat with Cindy. So I would love to introduce her. I love to introduce her because she has done so many great things, really impactful things. One of which is she has written The Incidental Guru, a wonderful, beautiful book. And also she is the author of the upcoming Magic of the Mind, The Alchemy of Beliefs. So a book which will relate back to all the topics many of the topics which we talk about here. And of course, she's a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist. So I welcome Cindy here, and it's exciting because we have a new topic today, and it is people pleasing. And I'm sure that we are talking about this topic because we definitely have gone through it some point in our life, and now it has changed into something else, something we have transformed. So I would love to hear your story and also your version of it, especially with your clients, how you help them overcome people pleasing. So I want to welcome you, Cindy.
Hi, Natty. You just always make me smile. You're so lovely. And it's great to be here on the Fireside Chats, which now we don't need a fireside chat because it's fiery hot in Canada. So it's wonderful. Finally, our summer has arrived. And the topic of people pleasing is always an interesting topic for me because I think I grew up as a people pleaser. And I think most of the people that I know have had, at least at some points in their life, sometimes of people pleasing or feeling that they have to do things to please others. And it's an important topic because when we find our authentic and genuine love of giving, then it's received and it's offered in a much different way than when we're in a people-pleasing mode. And you and I have talked about this because when you're in a people-pleasing mode, things feel more burdensome than loving. And who wants to give and feel burdened and obligated and all of that? So I think it's going to be a really good topic for everyone to really understand how we get caught into a people-pleasing mode. And very few people are people-pleasing all the time, but there are times when we are being people-pleasers, and it's nice to understand it so that we can step away from that and just really find our natural, organic, genuine way of wanting to do something for someone.
And I can imagine that for everyone, I guess, especially women, because we are taught quite early on to be the nurturer, to be the giving person, and to make others happy, to please others. I feel like there is quite a bit of conditioning for women or with young women growing up that this is something they should do. So when would someone know whether they are people pleasing or they're following a true desire? For me, one of the, I guess, red alarms or flags that pop up is when I find myself saying should a lot, or I feel like I should be, or I feel like I must, I have to. These sort of words are my flags. But for you, when is someone people pleasing? How would you differentiate that?
I think that should is the key word here. As soon as you feel you should be doing something, then it's not really coming from a genuine place. It's coming from a place of obligation. And of course, there's going to be some times when we're obligated to do something for family, say, for example. But when you feel the word should, then you don't allow yourself to feel that real, genuine sense of giving. I heard a very interesting story last night with my brother-in-law, in fact, and he was waiting for the train to come into the country from downtown Toronto, and this old 90-year-old man shuffled up to him, and he thought, oh God, why me? Why do I have to take care of this 90-year-old man? Why did he pick me? And then he thought, wow, you know what? I'm not really being very generous, and I do have a generous part to my soul, even though sometimes I don't. And he just opened himself up, and he ended up discovering that the history of this man, and he took the train all the way here with him, and he had this wonderful time. And the man said, and he owns this huge spa in Canada. You might have even heard of it, St. Anne's Spa. It's one of the oldest and most beautiful health spas in Canada. And he said, oh, and I have to invite you and all your family out here, and you can see the spa, and I'll show you around. You can have a day on me. It was just, and so he ended up having this beautiful time, just finding that genuine sense of his own generosity inside. But I think that what it all comes down to is that the should feeling is your trigger. You go, oh, yes, I feel should. That's my trigger. I know something's going on. When we look deeper into what drives people-pleasing moments is fear, as so many things are. We fear rejection. If we don't do this, then we will be rejected by that person. If we don't do this, then we fear that we're unworthy. And so we have to create worth by doing too many things or more and more things for other people. And that fear of unworthiness drives a lot of these people-pleasing behaviors. And the interesting thing is, for the most part, people will notice on some unconscious level that you're people-pleasing instead of genuinely giving something. Because at the deepest level of us, we are animals, like all animals, and we have this unconscious ability to pick up on the vibes, even if we can't articulate what it is. There's something just kind of odd about somebody or something where it's just being done because they're needing to please you, because they're afraid of being unworthy, or they are afraid of your rejection, or they're afraid of making you unhappy. What has usually happened to cause that is at some point somebody has become very, very unhappy with them if they didn't do something right, and sometimes quite harshly. And so that creates the initial problem of becoming a people pleaser. That's one thing. So I think that the trigger is should. That's definitely the trigger moment where you go, oh, I can recognize I'm being a people pleaser, and then enter into the fear of why it is, what's driving this need to please instead of this want and desire to give.
And would you say that is one of the, I guess, reasons why we embody or start taking on, I would call it even a strategy of people pleasing? Because what we're really exhibiting when we people please is almost like a survival strategy. That's what I find, because it's very beautiful that you mentioned it can be related to fear. It can be related to certain beliefs that if someone rejects me, that means a certain thing that reflects on me that I am not worthy or something else. But taking on a strategy or not being authentic, like you said, people can sometimes smell that. So that can actually throw yourself off. That could actually turn into something very negative for you, even though you may have started this strategy in order to benefit or to stay away from a certain outcome or fear that started this whole thing. So with what you mentioned about possibly having an experience that almost taught you that if you don't people please, then this will happen to you, is that one of the reasons why people start people pleasing? So where does this pattern come from? I know you mentioned quite a few, but is that it? Is that the in German you should say kernel, so the center, the core of the issue?
Yeah. Well, let me go way, way, way back for everybody. Yeah. Anybody who's ever been around a baby will notice that as soon as they learn how to manipulate things with their hands,
Mm.
then they will, and you're giving them food, they try to give you food. And I think that it speaks to the inherent nature of our generosity.
Mm.
So any child that you've been around, they will want to give you things, like a picture, a stone,
Yeah.
a leaf,
Yes.
a
Yeah.
dandelion. Like, I think that inherently we are generous people and we want to do things. And inherently we are designed to, when somebody smiles, we smile back. That's why I always say, you make me smile, Natty, because you have this beautiful smile. We are designed to respond to these beautiful social cues. But then what happens is those cues get a little bit mixed up as we get older.
Mm.
And perhaps some of the things that get these mixed up is perhaps we have parents who are very, very busy. And so we try to do pleasing things, and they are too busy to engage with us. And then we feel rejected on a really deep level. We may not be able to articulate it, but we feel rejected on a deep level. And then you try to do more generous things to get attention. That's one thing that can happen. And so then it becomes a fear of being rejected, or a fear of not being noticed, a fear of being unworthy. That's on the lighter hand of the scale. And on the other end of the scale is if you have had a very harsh upbringing where somebody is abusive, and then it's a real struggle. It's a real survival struggle. It's like, what can I do not to get beaten? What can I do not to get hurt? And so then it becomes this driving force of, I have to be good. I have to people please. I have to be good. And so you've got this whole range of what happens to create this people pleasing behavior. So the good news is, anybody who tries to be people pleasing really is in touch with their giving nature. Unfortunately, it's just being covered up by their fear. And if you can dip below that fear, understand the fear that drives you, then you actually end up deeper underneath all of the fear, and you touch that genuine, authentic desire to give to people and to connect with people. I mean, that's what we're about. We're about connecting with community and each other and family.
Yeah.
And once you get below that fear drives, so many things.
Yes.
Once you get below the fear, you find that core that you were talking about, that German word. What is it?
Can.
Can?
Yeah,
that
right.
core of who you are. Because as you're people pleasing, you're not being who you are.
Yes.
You're just being worried about whether you're going to be loved, or whether somebody's going to be angry with you if you don't do something properly. And so you want to get back down to that core.
Yeah. I love what we're speaking about, and I guess people pleasing is so relevant because we see that really common in everyday life. There's a lot of this small talk or people pleasing. You have a feeling like, where's the real person behind this? And I know that you just covered the whole spectrum of where people pleasing can come from. So from just, a really small thing you learn that you feel like you get something back from, to a real survival strategy. And so we can focus on being the authentic self today, because we can definitely speak about how to stay safe, how to listen to our gut feeling and intuition to stay safe. That's kind of like a different conversation. So let's stay with that authentic self, because for me, when I used to really struggle with people pleasing, one of the negative things that I was living along with people pleasing would actually be losing myself, finding that struggle, this exhausting, trying, all these shoulds. It's quite tiring. So how do we let all these shoulds go and start living for our desires and from our true authentic self? Let's dive deeply more into kind of how to transform people pleasing to something that is truly us.
Well, I think to a certain extent, when somebody gets caught up in the shoulds and they are working towards people pleasing in a way that is sort of out of control, that it sounds harsh, and I don't mean it in a harsh way, but in a way you're trying to manipulate an outcome. You're trying to manipulate how the other person perceives you and what they're going to do at the other end. And when you're caught in a survival mode, it feels like survival when you're into people pleasing. That manipulation of events doesn't allow something to unnaturally unfold between two people. And I know that we're going to not go on to the extreme, but I just want to say for anybody who has had an extreme experience with in childhood where they have been having to try and figure out what the right thing to do is because they get beaten, often you end up in relationships where you relive that and you still have to try to please somebody because they'll be unhappy with you, or you end up with friends, you have to try to please them or they'll be unhappy with you. And it's one thing that you pay attention to, because the people around you, those who truly love you, allow you to make mistakes and they don't get angry with you. Those who truly love you understand that there are times where you won't have the energy to do something. And those who truly love you will allow you your mistakes, your downfalls, your shortfalls, and they will love you anyway. And that's the beauty of a real, solid, truthful, authentic relationship, is when you can be yourself and it is all okay.
Yeah.
I think that when you're tired, it's another sign, like a trigger, like a should. When you're tired, when you're giving, then you're probably not giving from that authentic place. And I do really want to emphasize that giving is an authentic way for us to be. It's not unnatural. We are authentically giving beings. It's unnatural to not give. It's unnatural not to be generous.
Right. And if you connect that to what's your purpose or what makes you light up, it's usually some form of creation, some kind of sharing, some type of connection there. Yeah.
That's right. And that's what gives our lives meaning, is when we're doing meaningful things, we're meaningfully engaged with each other, meaningfully engaged in meaningful life. And I think that most people who find that their life feels rich and energetic and energized and meaningful, they're doing something for others. They're engaged in giving in some way, engaged in service.
Yeah. So when you talked about being your authentic self or making mistakes or just being who you are, and those who really care about you, those who actually love you, those who think you matter, they will love you no matter who you are,
Yes.
as long as you show who you are, as long as you live out that expression of who you are. And that for me touches on being vulnerable. So if you are acting out from a true self, it could feel vulnerable. It could be a little bit scary at the beginning if this is not something you're used to. But if you're coming from that place of vulnerability, but someone else on the outside may react in a very different way, or even aggressive, or something that you did not expect, you were hoping for support, just know that as long as you come from that true self, that reaction doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. Being authentic and expressing in this way and being vulnerable, making mistakes, someone could react differently, but that does not reflect on you, or that whatever behavior you exhibited, that being authentic was wrong at all. So know that there's no causation here. Know that the outside world has its own way of being too, and all we can do is be who we are and see how life takes it. But I do feel now that I'm being more myself, and maybe Cindy, it's the same for you, that when you start living who you are, you go for your true desires, and you just through action every day, each moment, you live this out, this authentic, vulnerable self, then the universe really serves you back with many more better opportunities and people who actually appreciate that. You'll actually attract people who will be able to appreciate that. So I guess there's many sides to this topic, but we do have a short call today. So I encourage those listening that if you have any comments, you want to add something, there is always a chat box underneath. You just need to type in your name, and then you can right away ask for questions or request, if you would like, that we dive into any of the things that we talked about today even deeper. And we would love to know what you think too. So, Cindy, are there any last thoughts that you have before we wrap up and I share what we have to give away that you have created just for this? Any, I guess, any more little kernels of suggestions, truth, your experiences that you want to share on the topic of people pleasing?
Well, this is a huge topic and we can go on forever. But
Yes.
to pick up on what you said, that you can't control what the environment does and how they're going to respond to you. And that goes to sort of allowing yourself to engage in the wonder and the mystery of what's going to happen, rather than having to have the certainty of what you're trying to make happen. And it allows you to get to know yourself better, and it allows you to get to know who others are. You watch how they respond.
Right.
And in time, you create the people that you resonate best with. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrong or they're wrong, but just you want to find the people that you resonate the best with. And the cheat sheet or the brief people-pleasing notes that we made are just very brief, to the point, and encouraging baby steps in changing your life. Because there's no question, people around you will begin to react differently when you change. And sometimes it's just easy from the beginning and people respond very positively, and sometimes they kind of go, oh, well, who are you now? And so there's often that time of finding your own balance, and until you find that genuine place of giving. Chances are, if you're a people pleaser, you have a huge, generous heart, and you want to find that place in the authentic way, not in the should way. It feels a whole bunch better.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for everything that you shared. And so what Cindy mentioned is that Cindy has written a PDF. It's called Your Ultimate Guide to People Pleasing and Pleasing People. And you can get that even if you're watching the replay. It's right underneath the video. And you can find that. It's in the little purple link, and it's exactly the title, which I just described. So just click it and you'll get an email to your inbox. So that's what we created just for you. And we love to create something for you to take away so that you can actually reflect and then give us feedback on what you think about the material that we also spoke about or also created, such as this PDF. So that's that. And that was another short but to the point, and I hope super helpful and empowering fireside chat. We haven't decided on the next topic yet, but you can vote for it inside the Feminine Space Facebook group. So just get in there. If you haven't received an invite yet, it is just go to femininetribe.com and then you can get access to the poll. So that's it for this week. Thanks to Cindy, and I hope that everyone has a really empowering week. And good luck to transforming your own people-pleasing. We have lots of resources that we have shared, so let's go out there and live that. All right. Goodbye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.